You really should think about getting a bigger car seat. That one looks like it's on its last leg." She said it before she even closed the front door behind her. My daughter was still in my arms, half asleep against my shoulder, and my mother-in-law was already scanning the living room like she was filing a report. It was 7:52 in the morning, a Tuesday. I hadn't even had coffee yet. "My name is Lena Hartfield. I've been married to my husband Owen for 4 years, and for 3 of those years, his mother, Beverly, has had a key to our house. A key she did not ask me for, that I did not offer, that appeared one day because Owen said it was just easier, just in case, just for emergencies." I remember nodding like it was reasonable. I remember thinking it would maybe come up once. A burst pipe, a forgotten package, something that actually warranted it. What I didn't anticipate was that emergency in Beverly's vocabulary meant any morning she woke up and decided she missed her grandchild. We live in Raleigh. Beverly lives 11 minutes away. I know because she has mentioned it no fewer than a dozen times, usually in the context of how it's really no trouble at all, how she's practically right around the corner, how she can be here in 10 minutes if we need anything. She means it as comfort. It has never felt like comfort. The visit started slow, once a week, usually on Sundays when Owen was home. She'd bring something, a casserole, a plant, once a whole bag of baby clothes that weren't in our daughter's size, and that I later found out she'd already gifted once before to a neighbor who'd returned them. She'd sit on the couch and hold our daughter and talk to Owen about his childhood in a way that slowly, consistently excluded me from every sentence. I didn't say anything. I told myself she was adjusting, that grandmothers are like that it wasn't personal. Then the key visit started. The first time, she let herself in while I was in the shower. I heard the front door, panicked, grabbed a towel, came out thinking someone had broken in. Beverly was standing in the kitchen making herself a cup of coffee. She looked at my towel and said, "Oh, sorry, I should have texted." She did not text next time, or the time after that. Owen's explanation was always the same. "That's just how she is. She loves you guys. She gets excited to see the baby. You know how she is." I knew exactly how she was. That was the problem. The comments were never loud. That's the thing people don't understand about a woman like Beverly. She doesn't yell. She doesn't make scenes. She speaks softly, with a kind of tired patience in her voice, like she's been carrying the weight of everyone's poor decisions for decades and is doing her best to stay gracious about it. "Your throw pillows don't match the rug, but it's cozy in here. You know they say babies sleep better without white noise machines, just something to consider." Has Lena thought about going back to work? I just ask because I've noticed she seems restless. I would never say anything, but the playroom is a little chaotic, isn't it? Owen heard none of it. He was at the office most mornings, back by dinner, and Beverly timed her visits with a precision that I eventually realized wasn't coincidental. She knew his schedule. She came when he wasn't there. And whenever I mentioned it, the conversation curved back around to, "She means well. Lena, she's trying. You're being a little sensitive." Sensitive. That word did more damage than any of Beverly's comments ever could. Because it didn't come from her. It came from him. The texting started 6 months in. I only found out about it by accident. Owen left his phone on the kitchen counter while he was grilling outside, and a notification came through. I wasn't snooping. I glanced, and what I saw made me pick the phone up. A thread. Long, going back months. Beverly, she left the dishes in the sink again when she went to her appointment. Photo attached. Beverly, I stopped by today and Maisie was in yesterday's clothes at noon. Probably nothing. Beverly, does she ever meal prep? I noticed the fridge was mostly takeout containers. Owen, Mom, I'm sure it's fine. Beverly, I know. I just want to make sure you're both okay. I worry. She was building a file, not on her phone, on his. I set the phone back down. I walked back inside and I finished making dinner, and I didn't say a word because I understood in that moment that saying a word was exactly what she wanted. She wanted me reactive. She wanted me to blow up at Owen about his mother so she could be the reasonable one. So she could say, with her soft, tired voice, I was only trying to help. Instead, I started paying attention. I went back through everything I could remember. The timing of visits, the comments, the photos she must have taken, because there were photos, I'd seen them in the thread, of my home, my dishes, my daughter's outfit. She'd been walking through my house and documenting it, not sharing with family, sharing with my husband, quietly, consistently. And then I thought about something she'd said 2 months earlier, at Easter at her house, when she'd cornered Owen's sister-in-law by the drinks table. I'd only caught pieces of it. Something about how some women just aren't cut out for it. How you can love your children and still not be present in the way they need. How the most loving thing you can do sometimes is step in. I hadn't connected it then. I connected it now. I didn't confront Owen. Not yet. I needed to think. I needed to be smart. The Sunday dinner happened 3 weeks later. Beverly suggested it. Hosted it at our house. Her suggestion, which I found strange until it wasn't. Owen's brother and his wife drove up from Charlotte. Beverly's sister flew in for a weekend visit and seemed in retrospect too conveniently present. 9 adults, including us. I cooked, I cleaned. I arranged everything because this was my home and I was not going to let her use my own table against me by giving her the opportunity to say I couldn't handle hosting. Maisie was in a new dress. The house was immaculate. I had flowers on the table. Beverly arrived first. She walked through the hallway without looking at me, complimented Owen on the flowers, and asked if she could hold Maisie before she'd even taken off her coat. Halfway through dessert, she tapped her wine glass with a spoon. I felt my stomach drop before she even opened her mouth. I just want to say something, she began. Soft smile. Measured pause. We all love this little family so much. Owen looked at her with the kind of warm attention that made me want to scream. She reached into her bag, a structured tan tote she carried like a briefcase, and pulled out a folded piece of paper. She unfolded it. It was printed, multiple pages. I've been concerned, she said, her voice full of something that sounded almost like grief, about some things I've observed. I know this is hard to hear. But I love Maisie and I love Owen, and I think we owe it to this baby to have an honest conversation. The table had gone very quiet. She started reading, not dramatically, methodically. Dates, times, descriptions, the dishes, the laundry. A morning she claimed Maisie had been crying for an extended period when she arrived, and I hadn't seemed to notice. A week she said I'd seemed withdrawn and disconnected. Language that was careful and concerned, and that, out of context, to people who only had her word for it, painted a picture of a mother who wasn't coping. Owen's sister-in-law reached across the table and touched my hand. Owen said nothing. I sat very still. The worst part wasn't the accusations. The worst part was how quiet the table was. How everyone was looking at their plates or at Beverly or at some point on the wall. Nobody was looking at me. Nobody asked me anything. And Beverly knew that. She'd timed this perfectly. A room full of people who were related to Owen, who loved Beverly, who had no context for what she was actually doing. She ended with, I think the healthiest thing for Maisie right now is for us to have more consistent support in place. I'm happy to step in more. I'm right around the corner. 11 minutes. She lives 11 minutes away. I excused myself to use the restroom. I closed the door, ran the cold water, and stood over the sink for 90 seconds. Not crying, counting. When I came back out, my face was the same as when I'd left. I picked up the dessert plates that needed clearing and brought them to the kitchen. Beverly watched me like she was waiting for something. I gave her nothing. After everyone left, Owen sat across from me at the kitchen table with this look, not angry, not defensive, just uncertain, searching, like he was trying to decide what he'd just witnessed. She's worried, he said finally. I know she is, I said. Maybe we should. I think I'm going to head to bed. I kissed his cheek and I went upstairs. Let him sit with it. Let him think about what his mother had just done, in his house, at a table I had set, to his wife, in front of his family. I lay in the dark for 2 hours. I wasn't upset anymore. I was clear. There's a difference. Upset is reactive. Clear is something else. Clear is when you finally understand the whole picture and you know exactly what you're going to do about it. Beverly had been collecting information for months. She'd presented it to the family. She'd framed it as concern. And she'd done it in a setting where I had no recourse, no documents, no version of events, nothing except my own word against hers. So I was going to build mine. The next morning I drove to Best Buy and bought 2 indoor security cameras. Not hidden. I put them in visible places in the living room and the kitchen. I also scheduled a well-child visit with Maisie's pediatrician and asked, in writing via the patient portal, for documentation of her developmental milestones and home environment assessments. I made an appointment with a family therapist for myself. Not because I needed to, but because I wanted documentation of voluntary, proactive mental health care. And then I called Beverly. I used my warmest voice. The one she'd been using on me for years. I've been thinking a lot about Sunday, I said. I think you raised some valid concerns, and I want to address them. Could you come by Thursday morning? Just you and me, no husbands, no audience. I think we're overdue for a real conversation. She paused. Just long enough. Then, of course, I'll be there at 9. I knew she'd come. Women like Beverly can't resist the feeling of having been heard. She'd expect me to cry, to apologize, to ask for her guidance, to hand her some version of what she'd been angling for since Maisie was born. Thursday morning, 9:01 a.m., I heard the sound of a key in the lock. Then silence. Then the doorbell. I opened the door and smiled. Beverly, come in. She stepped inside, eyes moving through the space, immediately cataloging. The living room was clean, minimal, organized. She noticed the camera on the bookshelf. I saw her register it. New decor, she said. Safety upgrade, I said. Coffee? We sat at the kitchen table. I'd made a pot. I poured 2 mugs and set them down and folded my hands. I know Sunday was hard, I said before she could speak. I want to make sure Maisie has all the people in her life who love her involved and informed. So I've been putting some things together. I slid a folder across the table. She looked at it but didn't open it. That's Maisie's developmental record going back to her 2-week visit, I said. Growth charts, vaccination records, milestone assessments. A note from her pediatrician, which you're welcome to read, that confirms she is thriving in a stable and nurturing home environment. Beverly's hand moved to the folder. She opened it. Her eyes moved down the first page. There's also a letter in there from my therapist, I said. Confirming ongoing voluntary counseling, healthy coping, no concerns. She turned a page. And since we're in the spirit of sharing documentation, I said, and I kept my voice even, the way you do when you've rehearsed something so many times it becomes calm, I thought you'd be interested in this. I picked up the remote and turned on the TV. Beverly looked up. The screen showed the security footage from the past several weeks. Her, at 8:43 on a Monday, letting herself in through the front door. Her, moving through the kitchen, opening cabinets. Her, in the hallway, photographing Maisie's diaper bag with her phone. Her, at the kitchen counter, reading a sticky note I'd left for Owen. Timestamp, timestamp, timestamp. Beverly went very still. You recorded me, she said. The cameras are visible, I said. There's no expectation of privacy. This is my son's house. It's my house too. I said it without any particular emphasis. Just a fact. She looked at the screen, then at me. Something had shifted in her face, some layer of composure that had been sitting there so long it had looked permanent. I let the footage run for another few seconds. Then I turned the TV off. There's one more thing, I said. I slid a second document across the table. This one she picked up immediately. It was a printed email thread, her emails, to a family attorney in Wake County. The subject line was, Concerns regarding grandchild's home environment, exploring options. The thread was dated 6 weeks ago. She had initiated it. She had described me in writing, using words like inconsistent, emotionally unavailable, and potentially unfit. She had been building toward a custody interference case, not for Owen, for herself. Beverly set the paper down very slowly. I have never, she started. I'm not going to let you finish that sentence, I said. I wasn't cold, I wasn't angry, I was just done. I know what you were planning. I know why you were in this house without my permission. I know what those photos were for. The kitchen was absolutely silent. I'm filing a formal trespass notice today, I continued. Your key will no longer work, as you discovered this morning. Any future entry into this home without my explicit invitation will be treated as trespassing under North Carolina law, and I will not hesitate to involve law enforcement. Beverly opened her mouth. I also want to be clear, I said, that I have no intention of removing you from Maisie's life. You are her grandmother. That matters. But you will schedule visits in advance, with my knowledge, and you will never again enter this home without being invited. She stood up. Her chair scraped back. She picked up her bag and held it against her side. You've turned Owen against me, she said. Owen is going to make his own decisions, I said. That's always been true. You don't know what you're doing to this family. I know exactly what I'm doing, I said. I'm protecting mine. She walked to the front door. I didn't follow her. I heard the handle turn, heard the door open, heard it close. I sat at the table for another few minutes, drank my coffee, let the quiet settle. Owen came home early that afternoon. I'd asked him to the night before without explaining why. He walked in, looked at the kitchen table where the folders were still laid out, and I walked him through everything. The footage, the pediatrician letter, the attorney email thread. He didn't say anything for a long time. Then, she contacted a lawyer 6 weeks ago. He sat down, he put his hands on the table. He looked at the printed email thread for a long time. Lena, he said finally. His voice was different, not defensive, not searching, just quiet. I'm sorry. 2 words, the first time in 4 years he'd said them about his mother without being asked. I believed her, he said, or I wanted to. I don't know which is worse. I know, I said. I should have seen it. He nodded, that was it, no big speech, no dramatic apology. Just acknowledgement finally, after years of small erasures, that I had been telling the truth all along. He called his mother that evening. I didn't ask what was said, I didn't need to. When he came back into the living room, he sat next to me on the couch and turned on something neither of us had any real interest in watching. And we sat there close together in the house that was ours, in the quiet that was finally ours, too. Beverly did not come by unannounced again. She requested a visit by text 2 weeks later, formal brief. Can I see Maisie Saturday afternoon? We said yes. She came at 2, left by 4, held the baby the whole time and spoke to me exactly twice. Once to ask where the burp cloths were kept and once to say,